Regular meeting of council for Tuesday, May 23rd to order at 3 p.m. Ask for a motion from Councillor Barton that council adopt the agenda for this meeting on May 23rd as presented.
Yeah, my motion, Mayor.
Thank you. All in favor? Carried. Ask for a motion from Councillor Smith that omnibus motion adopts the following in accordance with council's procedure bylaw, the April 24th regular council minutes, May 8th regular council meeting minutes, and the strategic priorities chart.
I'll give you that motion, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. All in favor? Carried. Public comments. Anybody have anything before we get started? See none, hear none. Delegations. Is Elaine here? I don't see Elaine. So we'll move on to the next one. River City Classics. Tracy, Roger?
Okay.
Yep, you're good to go.
Okay. Hi there. I'm here on behalf of River City Classics and Eamon's Garage, and we come to you to present some information about the Classic Car Club and about Eamon's Garage, about what we do, and how you can help us, we're hoping. So Eamon's Garage and the River City Classics are involved in many events throughout the town and throughout the year. We just had a Ladies' Day. We have Show and Shine at Notre Dame High School. We have the partnership with Call of the West Museum hosting the first annual all-truck show. We have Canada Day annual Show and Shine at George Lane Park, as well as Haggerty Kids Camp, and then the big Burnout and Show and Shine, which I'm sure you're familiar with. So all these events, River City Classics is now a registered charity. So we give back whenever we can to our nonprofits in our community. What we're looking for is some help with that. All these events cost us money, and being a registered charity, we're not for profit, so we don't have a lot of money coming in. Some of our non-recoverable expenses include liability insurance, rentals for radios, porta potties, stages, all sorts of signage, directional signs, printing for maps, and windshield posters and things like this. So what we're doing is coming to you for a help to pay for these things, knowing that the money that we do raise goes back into the community.
Hi, my name's Roger Hamill, and basically I'm filling in here, but they asked me at the last minute to come in and talk to you about this. Last time I was here, I was representing specifically the burnout, and we've discussed the burnout. We're just waiting for land use agreements, and hopefully we'll move that burnout to the drive-in area, and we're going to make it a lot larger and a lot more attractive this year. I believe that. But what we're here today about is the show and shine, basically. River City Car Club, as everybody's seen over the years, went from being a little car club that did a great job and put together a car show some 19 years ago now, to the point where it's arguably the largest event in High River's yearly calendar. We've always been independent. We're still independent. We raise our own money. We organize our own show. And quite honestly, we're here now looking for some help from the town in the financial support, in terms of financial support, to help put that show and the other functions that Tracy's mentioned together. Because we've transformed kind of away from a car enthusiast group to a big supporter of the town. We gave away $24,000 last year to charities within the town of High River. That is a big stipulation of ours. I personally stand behind that 100%. I'm involved in other organizations within High River, but from my point of view, we're going to take care of our neighbors. We're going to take care of this town. So $24,000 was given out last year out of the monies raised through the car show and the various events we have. The town of High River, as I think I mentioned, is always mentioned as a sponsor, and we all know you literally can't get a hotel room for that weekend in High River. The restaurants close the next day because they're tired. There's all kinds of numbers thrown out on how many people show up, but I feel comfortably 7,000 to 9,000 people show up on that day. The costs are getting higher and higher. The amount of effort is getting greater and greater. Our average age of our members is getting a little older and older, and some of the duties could be hired out to a certain extent. We're not looking to make more money in the car show. We're looking for help to put it together as classy as we always do. In the car club or the car enthusiast world, we're the last show of the year. We're the show everybody comes to. The whole province comes. We get them from Alberta, from BC, from Montana. I just spent the weekend in Libby, Montana, and met people from the car show in Libby, from the car club in Libby, that are planning on coming up. So it's really transformed into, again, arguably the largest event in High River. And we're at a point now where whatever assistance the town of High River could help us with would be greatly appreciated.
Yes.
The burnout, we're waiting for our land use agreement change. Hopefully that comes through fairly quick, because all of the contractors have basically donated the product. The paving is actually being donated by a Foothills paver. So hopefully that comes through and we can get that done. And if we can pull that off, it is going to be one heck of an event for sure. It's going to attract that many more people. So, as usual, I talk a lot, but I think that's about all I got to say. Thank you.
Thanks, Roger. Anything else, Tracy?
No, I've got nothing else to add.
Okay.
Thank you.
We'll go to questions from council here in a second. How much are you looking for? What's the dollar value?
Like $10,000.
Okay. And have you been through CVAC at all? I guess it
Not yet. We're
passed. Okay.
we're planning on applying this year.
Okay. Questions from council? Councillor Walsh?
Thank you, Mayor Snodgrass. My question or comment would be exactly that this would be something that we would generally see come through CVAC and probably would be put together quite quickly then to do the application. That's how. Yes, we'll be applying for CVAC. Instead of? Or
But no, as well as. Go ahead.
Prelude to us applying for CVAC?
CVAC, I was under the understanding that we missed the deadline for this year and that it would follow up in 2024.
So that's what I was just asking Chris. Chris, you said the deadline is tomorrow afternoon. Is that right?
There you go.
That's correct. They meet on a monthly basis on an as-needed basis. CVAC does when applications are received, and we take applications throughout the year until the money's used up.
Oh, okay.
So if you could get your application in by tomorrow afternoon, I'll be preparing the agenda on Thursday for next Tuesday's meeting. We have two other
Can I do
applications
that
already
at
being
work?
considered. Now, the one caveat is everything over $2,000, any ask over $2,000 ask has to come back to the council table to be approved formally once CVAC has ratified it. And so if it is an ask over 2,000, that would have to come back to this table.
And it will be, so. So the biggest thing is get the application in.
Right.
When would the next round be, Chris?
The
Is
next,
it on a monthly basis?
it's on a monthly basis, so the next meeting would be the last Tuesday in June, so that would be the 27th.
And 27.
Well, would there be any detriment to our position if we had that ready and available for June?
No detriment. At the end of the day, the committee looks at them based upon their merits and based upon what funding's left within their fund. They've already expended almost a quarter of their funding this year.
Okay,
So, the earlier the better. It's kind of, I wouldn't say a first come, first served basis the funding is, but they do take certain things into consideration. And for an ask of this nature of over 10K or up to 10K would take a quarter of their money.
okay. Well, if I can say that we'd like to come in for the next deadline, because from the logistics standpoint, to try to put that application in overnight would be, it wouldn't be doing the application justice, and it certainly wouldn't be doing mayor and council justice, because we want to be thorough and complete with it, for sure.
Well, and the event happening doesn't hinge on this money.
It
either,
does
right?
not
You're
and
gonna
will not
continue
hinge on this
so-
money.
Yeah.
And if the money is granted after the next deadline, that's certainly, going to be early enough. The event will not change. It's regardless of what's granted to us or not.
Perfect.
So we're going ahead. Our permits are still in the process. We're assuming, of course, as in every year, where the permits will be granted. We are in the process now. Tracy's operating as chair for the car show. So we're going forward. We're having a car show, and hopefully we're having that burnout as we discussed. And so rather than try to put it together overnight, which would be a crazy thing, if we could hold off till the next deadline, it'll be put together properly. And out of respect for mayor and council, I think that's the way it should be done.
Move it to June and follow it. Perfect.
Okay.
Excellent. Thanks, Tracy.
Thank you.
Roger.
Thank you once again.
Okay, we can, yeah. So the mural for Mel Wilson delegation, just running late coming here, so we're gonna move into the property tax bylaw, and then when Elaine gets here, I'll slide that delegation in when we got a gap. Go ahead, David.
To you, bylaw 4613, 2023, the 2023 property tax bylaw. The passing of a property tax bylaw is an annual standard operating procedure of the town as provided for under the Municipal Government Act to reflect changes in levels of services, increase contribution to reserves, or to recover the full cost of program delivery. The passing of this bylaw directly supports the 2023 operating budget. As you will recall, Council adopted the 2023 operating budget in the amount of $32.525 million on February 13th, 2023, including net municipal taxation of $14.982 million, excluding requisitions. As you will further recall, during our budget conversations leading up to February 13, one of administration's key budget objectives was to minimize cost increases, understanding that when property assessment values increase at a higher rate than cost increases, tax rates or mill rates should decline within a tax-mindful community. Within the background section of the request for decision, you will note that 2023 mill rates continue their decline, about 4.2% from those set in 2022 and 2021, reflecting the fact that property assessment growth, about 7.7% over previous year, continues to outpace cost increases, allowing administration to return this difference to taxpayers in the form of lower tax rates or mill rates. For the average residential and farmland property, the average net increase resulting from this bylaw is $81 per property per year, excluding requisitions. By passing bylaw 4613-2023, bylaw 4606-2022 being the 2022 property tax bylaw is repealed. That concludes my comments.
Thanks, David. Any questions from council? I'll ask for a motion from Councillor Kinghorn that council give first reading to bylaw 4613-2023, the property 2023 property tax bylaw, and the council give second reading to the previously mentioned bylaw, and that all council give unanimous consent to proceed with third and final reading of the previously mentioned bylaw.
Thank you, Mayor Snodgrass. First, I'd like to thank administration for all the hard work. I know a lot of hours went into putting this together, and I think it's a good thing for the town of High River, what you did. Thank you. So I'll give you that motion, Mayor Snodgrass.
Thank you. All in favor? Carried. I'll ask for a motion from Councillor Nychuk that council give third and final reading to bylaw 4613-2023, the 2023 property tax bylaw, and council repeal bylaw 4606-2022, the 2022 property tax bylaw.
I'll give you that motion as stated, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. All in favor? Carried. Thanks, David.
Thank you.
Tree removal, Darlene? And Nancy?
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I'm here today in relation to a report presented on May 8th in regards to tree removal and replacement process within the town of High River. This report provided information on the town's current tree removal and replacement process and the fact that there are 60 trees currently listed on the removal list. If these removals were completed as one individual project, the cost would total $60,000. This amount would fall outside the current year's operational budget, since if this was taken out of the operational budget, it would pretty much use up all of our tree maintenance dollars. The original process was for council to provide funding in the amount of the full $60,000. However, after consideration in regards to capacity to complete this work, administration is requesting $30,000 to remove 23 trees identified as high risk. The costing for the remaining removals will be factored into the operational budget for 2024. Therefore, we are requesting that council approve funding in the amount of $30,000 for the removal of 23 high-risk trees, including stump removal. I'll take any questions if you have them.
Thanks, Darlene. Questions from council? Councillor Kinghorn?
Thank you, Mayor Snodgrass. So this isn't part of our current operating budget for 2023. Can I ask where the funding is going to come from?
Kinghorn slush fund.
We do have one of those, yes. We have one of those too.
Spend it.
Thank you, Mayor Snodgrass, through the Councillor Kinghorn. The funding would come from accumulated annual surplus. And basically any work that's not completed this year would cover the costs associated with that. So we typically run a surplus on an annual basis, and that would come from that. We would not take from reserves at this point.
Councillor Smith?
Thank you, Mayor Snodgrass. Thank you, Darlene and Nancy. Question then, does this plan also include replacing those trees or alternative replanting and further beautification?
So replacement generally occurs the following year, or in some cases, the following second year after removal, and that's just so that the site is appropriate for planting, especially when you have the larger removals. It takes a while for those stumps to degrade so that we can plant. So that will be factored into our annual tree planting, so that any trees removed this year would be replaced hopefully next year.
Okay. Further to that, then, will we be communicating that with any of the property owners nearby? Because I'm sure they're probably fairly invested in those trees and what they represent.
Yes, certainly. Communication is definitely key with any adjacent homeowners, the public in general, and any businesses as well.
Thank you.
Councillor Nychuk?
Thanks, Mayor Snodgrass. For my fiscal understanding, we had surplus in 2022. We allocated that surplus to various places. So as of 2023, I know David's left the room, but we already have a calculated surplus for 2023 that this $30,000 will come from? I know we can assume there might be, and I know we're trying to tidy that up long-term, but
Typically within our operational budget, we always have either projects or staffing that's not fulfilled. And so, we're never fully staffed up and we never fully complete a project. So we always have some degree of surplus. And our goal has always been to get that surplus down to that $150,000 range, not in the $750,000 or $1 million range from that perspective. And that would be a healthy surplus if we got to that target. And it would also allow us some flexibility. In addition, we have unallocated reserves that we had to use reserves. We have unallocated reserves that we could tap into if we needed those at that point in time when we do the final budget amendments at the end of this year.
great, thanks, Chris. I kind of knew the answer, but just wanted to put it out there. Thank you.
I'll ask for a motion from Councillor Jones that council authorize the removal, including stump removal, of 23 trees currently listed on the tree removal list, and that council approve funding of $30,000 for the removal of high-risk trees and stumps.
I'll give you that motion, Mayor Snodgrass.
Thank you. All in favor? Carried. Thanks, Darlene. Community support policy, Chris?
Thanks, Mayor Snodgrass. So council at our last meeting through an in-camera process, we took a look at this policy and reviewed it. It was under the direction of council from the 2022 budget to come back with a framework that was more predictable and a policy that could be applied across the entire community. So the recommendations that is before you today is the proposed framework that's in policy form to allow the support for community groups in multifaceted approach, not just funding, but also fee-for-service agreements, grants, letters of support, and waiver of fees within some of our facilities. The process will also increase the accountability framework as well, because there'll be annual reporting that's going to be required, especially under the fee-for-service arrangements. As well as that we want to have details of what the deliverables will actually be coming back to the municipality. And so when you see those groups that we have listed there, the Museum of the Highwood Center, the High River Handy Bus, Stars Foundation, Lights and Parade Society, the Visitor Information Center, and the High River Municipal Library, and there's 3 others to follow this report if this policy gets adopted. They all provide some level of service to the community and all are tax funded in some direct fashion. This would formalize those in fee-for-service arrangements with clear deliverables and expectations, and give them a term agreement instead of year to year that would give them the opportunity for predictable and stable funding moving forward and allow them to leverage other organizations for additional funding if that was the case. So this framework that you see before you in policy form kind of amalgamates a bunch of other things and introduces a new framework, as well as formalizes the funding formula that has been historically used by council, into the Appendix B based upon the per capita rate, as well as the population growth. We have also included 2% inflationary rate on an annual basis that also is worked into the calculation. And so that gives some surety over a 5-year term that those organizations will see that level of funding coming forward. And so that's the rationale of the recommendation that's before council today. And certainly council has options before it as well. So thank you, Mayor Snodgrass.
Questions from council? Thanks, Chris. Councillor Smith?
Thank you, Mayor Snodgrass. Thank you, administration. I'm sure this is a very unique project to take on because there's so many different groups. My question is, when it comes to the reporting piece, because each one is a little bit different, will you be involving them in the discussion around what reporting is most relevant, what that will look like for each one, and sort of making that not as an arduous task, but still getting the information that's required?
Yes, certainly, Mayor Snodgrass through the Councillor Smith, it has to be easy for them, but it still has to be accountable. And
Sure.
I think at the end of the day, you know, we want to make sure that the deliverables that they promise to deliver are being delivered and that the funds are fully expended from that perspective. And to be clear, the funds under the fee-for-service arrangement are intended for operational costs, not for capital expenses. And I think that's a very important delineation here with part of that policy, because at the end of the day, we don't want reserves being built up. We want the money to be expended to provide a benefit to the community and support the citizens of High River on an annual basis through whatever service they're dealing with. So the reporting's got to be very simple, very straightforward, and I think it has to adapt over time as well. For every organization, it's going to be customizable. It's not going to be a template that's going to be applied. This is the checkbox that you have to deal with, but we have to have those conversations, and we have to be adaptable to each individual organization's different circumstances.
No further questions? Or do you? Councillor Kinghorn?
Thank you, Mayor Snodgrass. So to expand a little bit on Councillor Smith's question, we're talking about financial reporting. And to me, financial reporting is pretty straightforward. There is no grayness area sort of thing. So are we going to have some sort of a template that describes exactly where the revenue came from and where the expenses went? I mean, at the end of the day, that's what I'm looking for, right?
Yeah.
And that's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, the report, you know, as a great, I'll use an example of, say, one of the next agenda items, the High River Performing Arts Foundation, for example. That one's going to be very straightforward to report because they've got a series of events that they've committed to providing to the community for free, and each one has a specific cost. And to report on that, what that each individual event costs, and what will be easy for them to track. And so that would be one simple example from that perspective. Another one would be STARS as well. STARS would be a very unique agreement. You know, at the end of the day, we don't want to see 10 trips a year into High River for STARS, but we want to make sure that it's readily available for all our residents to use when they actually need that service. And so as long as those things are provided, that's going to be the deal. So the reporting is going to match what's in the agreement and the deliverables that they promise and commit to, and that has to be matched up.
I'll ask for a motion from Councillor Walsh that council approve the community group support policy, POL 1010100, and that staff be directed to develop 4-year fee-for-service agreements to be approved prior to the 2024 budget being adopted for the following community groups: Museum of the Highwood Center, High River Handy Bus, Stars Foundation, Lights and Parade Society, Visitor Information Center, operated by the Museum of the Highwood and the High River Municipal Library. And further, that council rescind the letter of support policy, LegServ POL 104.
I'll give you that motion, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. All in favor? Carried. Next step in this process, fee-for-service agreements, High River Performing Arts Foundation, High River Balloon Festival, and Shepherd Family Park. Chris?
Thank you, Mayor Snodgrass. So the next step in this process is to approve 3 new fee-for-service arrangements that we have been proposed and submitted requests for. One for the High River Performing Arts Foundation for a 1-year term in the amount of $40,000. High River Balloon Festival for a 3-year term starting at $31,500 and increasing as per the policy and the schedule in the Appendix A. and Shepherd Family Park for a 3-year term starting at $12,000 and increasing as per the policy as well. With the new framework that Council has recently adopted, that gives us the opportunity to extend community support across other broader groups within the community that have either sought support through either CVAC or through other means as well, from that perspective. And so this will be, two of these agreements, the Balloon Glow as well as the High River Performing Arts, had been consistent annual asks to CVAC. And so CVAC is really that innovative fund, that one time or a couple years seed funding to get something off the ground and get moving. And they have a very limited budget. They've been lucky the last few years that they've had a surplus, but you know, at the end of the day, they've got a very limited budget. And so moving those into a fee-for-service structure allows for basically events that aren't going anywhere to be funded on a stable, predictable fashion. The one anomaly here is the High River Performing Arts Foundation. Because this is kind of a new fee-for-service, new delivery of different events throughout the community, including multiple events throughout the year, including the summer concert series, as well as concerts in George Lane Park, and something for performing arts that has not typically been funded in this fashion before. You know, we wanted to put it on a 1-year pilot program, and if the reporting comes back very clear, then they'd be coming forward for a 3 or 4-year option to renew from that perspective. And so the fee-for-service arrangements allows us to make sure that there's accountability and to be observant and liaise well with these groups to make sure the deliverables that they've committed to are being delivered to the community. And all these events, the intention is that they be free. If taxpayers' dollars are being funded, then those events should be free. You certainly could have your tip jar out or your donation jar out from that perspective for those citizens that want to give money to the organization, but it's not to charge a ticket fee of any kind from that perspective. Or if they are charging a ticket fee, that they have us have that conversation and what that ticket fee was being established, and we float that through council from that perspective. So the recommendation that's before you today is to approve those 3-year fee-for-service arrangements, and continue the monitoring and build on our community group policy that we just adopted, and to move forward from there. That's the rationale for the recommendation, Mayor Snodgrass.
Thanks, Chris. Councillor Kinghorn.
Thank you, Mayor Snodgrass. Since I'm the chairperson of arguably the biggest balloon event in High River, as we heard earlier, I would ask that I be excused from this vote.
Thank you. No other questions. I'll ask for a motion from Councillor Barton that Council approve the following fee-for-service funding agreements as follows. The High River Performing Arts Foundation for a 1-year term in the amount of $40,000. High River Balloon Festival for a 3-year term starting at $31,500 and increasing as per the policy. And Shepherd Family Park for a 3-year term starting at $12,000 and increasing as per the policy.
You have my motion, Mayor.
All in favor? Carried. Thanks, Chris. Contract award for the Hamptons Hills Bypass Connector. Diana?
Afternoon, Mayor and Council. I'm here to present the Hamptons Bypass project. This project was tendered on April 27th, and the tender was closed on May 11th. This tender included 3 projects, which was the Hamptons Bypass Road, Connector Road, the Regional Pathway Connector, and Center Street, which is from second half to the floodgates. We received 3 bids on this tender, and the bidders were Beaumark, coming in at $3,765,000 and change. Consite, $4,241,180 and change. North Star, $3,494,952 and change. Unfortunately, all bids were over council's approved budget. Understanding where we are from a budget perspective, administration looked at 2 possible options to take these projects forward. We looked at doing the projects from a taking on the full scope. And this full scope includes the Hamptons bypass connector with 2 mini roundabouts, the parallel pathway to the bypass, all electrical work, all the landscaping, along with the optional regional pathway. We also looked at doing a reduced scope. And the reduced scope includes the full Hamptons bypass connector, 50% of the landscaping, and also we removed the mini roundabouts and replaced those with 2 four-way intersections. I'm sorry. Administration also worked with finance to see how we could fund this project and to find out where we could get all the funds from. In relation to the Hamptons bypass road, we looked at taking the funds from the off-site levy, and the funds that we would need from that reserve would be $1.7 million. The Center Street project, that was also over. We looked at taking the funds from MSI, and that is in the amount of $12,621.17. The regional pathway, we also looked at taking the funds from the gas tax in the amount of $124. No, please note that all these funds does not include any contingency or engineering. In addition to all the funds taken from reserve, the $1.7 million that was council's approved budget will be addition to what we're asking council for. Therefore, at this time, we are recommending that we award the project to Beaumark to complete the full scope of the project. And with that, I would open it up for questions from council.
Thanks, Diana. So just clarifying, in the report, it's got Beaumark at 3.3.
Yes.
In our agenda, it says Beaumark at 3.1. What am I missing?
So the 3.3 is what they came in at with the full scope. The 3.1 that you're looking at is just to complete the road and the regional pathway added on to that.
Okay.
The reason why you're seeing the 3.3 that they came in at, it doesn't include, that includes the full scope, which is the engineering work, the full road, the lighting, and the landscaping. The 3.1 does not include all the contingency, site occupancy, and the forest fee.
Okay. It's a tough nugget to swallow, but this is part of our responsibility with this development, is to get this bypass connector road done. It's been a long time waiting for it, so. Councillor Kinghorn?
Thank you, Mayor Snodgrass. I have to agree with you. This project has been on the books since I've been on council back in 2010, and I'm happy to see that we're finally getting close to getting it done. I'm a little disappointed at the cost, but I understand where it's coming from, so I'll be supporting this project wholeheartedly.
No other questions? Councillor Smith?
Thank you, Mayor. Just curious as to, it will be finished before we see snow this year then? Is that the hope?
Well, hopefully. The construction timeline is between 75 to 104 days. So we need to get moving right away if we want to finish before snow. That's correct.
Thanks. You're not seeing snow as well.
So I'll ask for a motion from Councillor Kinghorn that council authorize an amendment, this is going to be a long one, to the 2023 capital budget to increase the Hamptons Bypass Connector project budget from 1.76 million to 2.514 million, excluding GST, 10% contingency, engineering, site occupancy costs, extras such as Center Street top lift and Second Avenue regional pathway, and third-party costs. And council approved the use of off-site levy funds in the amount of 1.7 million to fund the Hamptons Bypass project, and roundabouts with remaining portion be funded by the MSI. And the council amend the 2023 capital budget to increase funding for the Center Street rehabilitation budget from $140,900 to $153,521.79, excluding GST, 10% contingency and engineering to be funded from the MSI. And that council amend the 2023 capital budget to fund the regional pathway connector from the gas tax fund in the amount of $124,862, excluding 10% contingency and GST, and the council award the Hamptons Bypass Connector project totaling $3,184,270.15, including Center Street paging and the regional pathway connector to Beaumark, excluding GST and 10% contingency, and further that council authorize the CAO to execute the contract with Beaumark.
What was that?
You can check
Yeah,
back
my
on
motion.
It'll be on YouTube later if you need to
Thank you, Mayor Snodgrass. I'll give you that motion then.
figure out what you just moved. All in favor? Carried. Thanks, Diana. Sports court request for town funds, Kaylee? Oh, is Elaine here? Oh, Richard's here. Oh, I looked right over top of Elaine and saw Richard sound asleep already at the back, so Elaine, you're it.
Sitting at the back like any,
No, that's,
sitting at the back like any.
that's right.
Thank you so much for letting us come today to tell you about our project. So my name is Elaine Scow. Back there in the back row is Richard Gullison. Richard and I were long-term friends, Richard longer than me, of Melvin Wilson, kind of known around here as Mel, or Mel Many Chords, to those of you who knew him through his being a musician here. Mel sadly passed away about 4 years ago, a little more than 4 years ago. I can't see if Richard's nodding yes or no to me, so that's kind of perfect. And Richard began having an idea about putting together a mural for Mel. And you may have seen our GoFundMe account, our GoFundMe period, that we've been doing to raise funds for the mural. So we're here just today, not for money, but just to tell you a little bit about that project. And, you know, I guess I don't think we need kind of approval, but we would still like some happy nods that this sounds like a good project moving forward. So the project is a mural that will be painted by Don Ham, who is one of our local artists here in town. We believe that it will fit nicely into the town with all the other murals that are here. It is not just a portrait of Mel. Those of you that know Don Ham, he kind of has his own way of interpreting things. But it is a portrait, it is a mural to kind of represent Melvin and what he was to this community. For those of you who don't know Melvin, Melvin was more than a musician. He was a very well-loved music teacher. And he taught so many of our youth who now are kind of moving into young adulthood in High River. And Melvin was someone that he had his own kind of philosophy and way to look at life. So, you know, if some of you were at the celebration of life for Melvin, many of his students got up and spoke. They had flowers for anybody that was a music student of Melvin's. And there were so many people there with flowers. So we would we wanted to have something that was visible for people to remember Melvin, maybe a place that they could come and tell stories about Melvin and remember him. It is going to be hung on the wall of Evelyn's. It is being done by Don Ham, so it's going to be a mural that will be attached to the wall. It's not going to be painted on the wall, so that if it needs to be removed for upgrades or, you know, wear and tear in our hostile winter climate here, it can be done so that the building, you know, will not, you know, be kind of harmed by it. As I said, we've had a GoFundMe going. We've been very fortunate. Other friends of Melvin's had a fundraiser jam at Sally's Saloon or Bar about a month ago. They were able to collect a fair bit of money at that. We'd like to think about that as this was kind of Richard's idea, but it really is a community project. It's meant to be so that people who could and wanted to be involved with this are. And so we're looking at hanging it at Melvin's. We've had conversation with Hubert, as well as with with Dave Parker. I can't remember if that's his really last name, Michelle's Parker. And so they have very graciously agreed that the mural could go on there. So we don't quite have all of our funding in place yet, but we have put it, we haven't quite yet, but we're just kind of under the wire to submit it to see if we can get some vitality funding. And they meet on the May 30th. And so that will be, the application will be into them by that time. I don't know what else. I'd just like to take some questions to see if anybody has any questions or concerns about this.
Yeah, we'll take questions from council. I think it's a great idea. Of course, a friend of Mel, I'd love to see this go forward, and you are. So the deadline for that application for CVAC is tomorrow.
Okay, well.
The decision they're making is on the 30th.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Well, the email I had said that he was away on a bit of an extended leave, and if I could have it to him by Thursday, but if it needs to be there by tomorrow, it will be.
Let's go with your email,
Okay.
whoever you're talking with. I'm not getting in the middle of that one.
Okay.
Do that, Elaine. Any questions from council? I think it's a great idea. Thanks, Richard, for starting this, and Elaine, for you guys putting this all together, because it'll be really cool in that area too. So, Councillor Walsh.
Thank you, Mayor Snodgrass. I look forward to watching this unfold in the downtown, and I hope that you'll keep us all abreast, and perhaps we'll be able to celebrate the unveiling.
Yes, absolutely. We're hoping to have a bit of a unveiling that people will know about, and just kind of have a time to be there. So we will make sure that we CC the people from town council so that you can be part of that.
And very cool that Dawn's doing it.
Very cool.
Very cool. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mayor Snodgrass. So you've raised 10 already.
Yes.
What do you anticipate you require?
So for the actual mural, we need 12,500. We're looking at some additional things. If we can get additional funding, because we're kind of getting close to the deadline, other people have said, ooh, they wanted to support it. So we're expecting a bit of other funding, you know, coming in from community people, so that we can put a nice plaque together, have a bit of an unveiling. So depending, you know, where the monies are, that, you know, some of those add-on pieces, but in terms of getting the actual mural painted, finished, put up, 12,500. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Elaine. You can wake Richard up
And head on out.
well,
Thank you so much.
or you
We're
can
so
go
excited
back and
about
have a
this.
nap with him.
I
don't
could,
know.
but I think I'll just take them home.
Rest of the meeting, I'll just take him home.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
There you are, buddy. Sport court, Kaylee?
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I am here on a community project called the Sport Court. So back in 2017, the United Way and High River Partnership received a $200,000 bereavement from the past resident Brian Perry. After much discussion, the committee had decided to invest the funds into redeveloping the area that we now call the Brian Perry Youth Park. So some of those funds have already been spent on doing some of the work within the park. You'll notice that the mini putt has been removed. There's been some benches that have been painted. There are some fire pits that are out there. They haven't been placed in place yet, but there has been some remediation work done on the park. The town's also purchased a sport court, so the tiles and the nets and the posts and everything. So we have approximately $90,000 remaining in this fund bucket right now to take care of the remaining costs. So the project itself was all about putting some pride in repurposing a space that we already had in the town. So that's how the funds were able to be used so far. In order to complete the final portion of this project and install that all sport court, which we have purchased already and sits in storage, we need to complete the following activities. So we need to get our concrete pad poured. And we'll get that will include light bases for light standards and some immediate repair around the concrete pad itself. There is other landscape remediation work that needs to take place around some of the fencing that was removed, around the driveway and areas that construction equipment needs to access the site to complete the concrete pour. And there's also then going to be the installation of the sport court tiles, the basketball nets, and the multi-sport net poles. What's going to fall outside that budget? So we did send out a tender and we had a couple bids come back, and that kind of identified that yes, we can complete the concrete pad, we can complete that, but at least a few items left outside of budget that would really just tie up the remainder of this park and just complete it and bring it to completion. So we have some landscaping repairs around the driveway. You'll notice that some of the fencing was removed from the site, and there's actually quite a bit of damaged fencing just from it being there for years that just needs some TLC. So those landscape repairs need to be taken care of. The light bases and the light standards are part of the project, so we have those and they'll go up. However, having electricity to them is outside of our budget right now, so they'll effectively be there for the future when we do bring in some power. Installation of the recognition plaque for the Brian Perry Youth Park, and also getting up, of course, our sport court sign, which will identify what the sport court is for, how to use it, and kind of some rules that we have at all of our parks. And then we have repairs of that fence around the property, but also the replacement of the fence. So, and what's key to understand is that the fence that's missing currently right now is right at the intersection of 12th Ave and 10th Street. So that's where we're at. So we're looking for some additional funds. This would be town contributed funds now outside of the donation that we already have to complete this project. So I will open it up for any questions.
Thanks, Kaylee. Questions from council? Pretty self-explanatory. I'll ask for a motion from Councillor Smith that council amend the 2023 capital budget to allocate an additional $55,000 from the MSI in order to complete the project, and that council approve the increased scope of work to include trenching for power to the lights, full landscape remediation of the site, fence repairs, new fencing installed at the intersection, and installation of a recognition plaque and park signage.
I will give you that motion, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. All in favor? Carried. Thanks, Kaylee.
Thank you.
Council reports, anybody? Board and committee reports? Board and committee minutes listed in your agenda from the Airport Board, Museum of the Highwood, and Shepherd Family Park. Any public comments before we move in? Jody's got one.
I just wanted to read an email that we received with regard to the Little Britches Parade that took place this past weekend. It was with regard to Hank Leafrink and some additional above and beyond support he provided. The email reads, I wanted to send a huge thank you for making it easy for my mom to enjoy her granddaughter in the parade this weekend. You went above and beyond and made such a wonderful last memory for our family. I just wanted to send gratitude to what you helped us do for her this weekend. Thank you.
Thank you. And fantastic parade on the weekend. It was packed the whole way around, and I think they had a record number of entries into the parade and probably record attendance too, because the weather was absolutely perfect. Council correspondence requiring action. Seniors Week. I'll ask for a motion from Councillor Nychuk that Council authorize Mayor Snodgrass to sign the proclamation declaring June 5th to 11th, 2023 as Seniors Week.
Be happy to give you that motion, Mr. Mayor.
All in favor? Carried. Letter from Yellowhead County actually requesting a delay to the provincial election. I don't think we can actually do this anymore as advanced polls have opened today, so I don't think there's any rewinding that, and I think things have slowed down enough up north that everything's okay, but regardless, I don't think we're able to rewind the provincial election, so my recommendation is just to stay away from that one. Council correspondence for information listed in your agenda. The biodigester, letter from Town of Diamond Valley to their parade invite. Additional High River Campground. I'll address this one because this is another one. We haven't had one of these for a few years, but it's another request to turn Wallaceville into a campground. Wallaceville, everybody was moved out of that neighborhood for one reason and one reason only, and that was to create room for the river so that we're not dealing with a 2013 flood again. It is an overflow channel throughout the year for any overflow water. That it's part of our flood mitigation program. I can never ever support turning that into anything other than what it is. Passive recreation in there, trails, benches along the river, those kinds of things, that would be just fine. But filling it full of RVs and everything, I just can't. Priority one is flood mitigation, and I feel the council needs to stay on that program. So memories are short, but we cannot become complacent and think we can start loading these areas back up. So you start with campground, it just continues on with what else goes in there. So my answer is no. But Councillor Kinghorn?
Thank you, Mayor Snodgrass, and I would add to this, as I was one of those people that had property down there, doing something like this is simply a slap in the face to all those people that lived in that community. Many of us wanted to stay, some did want to leave and moved on, but many of us did want to stay, and we understand what that neighborhood was like when we lived there. So to start putting RVs and campers and everything else in there, that to me is just totally disrespectful to all of those landowners that were there prior to the flood. Thank you.
Well stated, Councillor. Thank you. Any other comments on that one? Marigold Library System notes to council and a letter, thank you letter from STARS. So at this time, I will ask for a motion from Councillor Walsh that council recess the regular meeting May 8th, 2023, May 23rd, 2023 at 3:58 p.m. and moved into a closed meeting.
I'll give you that motion, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. All in favor? I was going to ask you to repeat your motion.
I knew you were.